Let's go to Brooklyn, New York. Jimmy, east of the Rockies, you're up with us. Hey, Jimmy.
Hi. The CIA had prior warning that the Soviet Union was going to collapse. They got it from the most important Soviet defector ever, a man named Anatoly Golitsyn, who defected in '61, and he told U.S. intelligence that the Soviet Union, the whole intelligence apparatus, was reorganized after the death of Stalin, and he went back to the Leninist model, which is massive subversion and deception.
Right.
Now, Golitsyn was destroyed in this working in the CIA when Nixon wanted to open relations with China, and then Nixon and the guy after him ended up firing the counterintelligence chief, Angleton. So they totally discounted everything Golitsyn said, even though history has shown now, out of 150 predictions, he's proved to have been right 146 times.
Well, I'm sure the CIA knew Russia was going to come down. The whole
Right, it's a deception, though. What I'm saying is a deception. The strength, you don't measure a strength in the country by the amount of missiles they have. Is also political, cultural, and social strength.
Right.
America is collapsing, too. And if you look at what the Soviet operations in Latin America, they're strengthening Cuba, Venezuela. Wherever there's energy, the Soviets or the Red Chinese are there. The stated goal of the Soviets was to take control of the energy, the treasure trove of minerals that are the West life support system. And now, the Soviet front group in Washington, the Institute for Policy Studies, one of their key guys, is about to be heading the CIA.
Well, frankly, I think when you see Russia cuddling up with Hugo Chavez and those kind of people, I think of two drunks on the sidewalk leaning against each other trying to prop themselves up from falling down.
Well, see, that's the weak look. If you never underestimate your enemy, because the power they have within America with the Popular Front, United Front political movements, and Leon Panetta was a big guy with the Institute for Policy Studies, the Soviet front group. So they have enormous political power in this country. Remember, the Chinese communists are on record as saying if half the world died in a nuclear war, it wouldn't be so bad because the new world would be communist. If the current Russian or Chinese government collapses, the new government will be communist, either open or secret.
Well, I have no doubt that whatever dirty tricks we're doing against those other bad guys, they're doing the worst to us. It's going on all over the place in both directions. So I think the United States is not invulnerable to this. And in fact, at one point in the book, I actually mentioned, we're really in a race to oblivion with the Chinese on this. I mean, we have mismanaged our own finances terribly.
How do you know it's
we're trying to wreck
mismanaged?
theirs.
How do you know it's mismanaged? How do you know it's not on purpose? The movement for world government, I've only really studied the communist part of it, but the U.S. government in the early 50s, the Reese Committee to investigate the tax-exempt foundations, came to the conclusion that the major tax-exempt foundations in America are working to insert us into a world government. Zygmunt Brzezinski wrote a book on it. He supports world government. And there was somebody else, I just can't remember now. Professor Quigley, Bill Clinton's mentor, Tragedy and Hope, I believe it is, talks about both parties are like a false opposition to each other. They're all working toward world government, and he supports it. So the communist end of it was violent revolution. The part in America was peaceful revolution, but since the 80s, the Soviet press talked about the peaceful evolution to world socialism, and they called the European Union the new Soviet Union. Gorbachev does. So at one point, there's the illusion of growing democracy, but if you look at it objectively, you see that there's also a growing world Marxist movement.
Yeah. Well, I agree with you. Things are never what they appear to be.
That's exactly right.
As far as world government, I guess that's above my pay grade. I'm still stuck back to thinking about national security issues and traditional alliances. But I hear you.
All right, time for one or two more calls. Tampa, Florida. Go ahead, Michael. You're on with James Norman.
Hello. Thank you.
Sure.
One thing that I think could be, and hopefully it doesn't come to pass, is that with the U.S. Looking like it's going to add several tens of thousands of troops to the Kandahar region of Afghanistan, that there could be a potential flashpoint involving all those countries in the region, India, China, Afghanistan, Pakistan, and Iran, for a variety of reasons, but for the reasons that are being discussed today, it would be about oil lines and port cities and markets, really. I mean, mean, there are borders that aren't set between China and India, India and Pakistan, you know, with Kashmir still undecided. The Chinese have a border with Pakistan, and they're developing rail lines in the country. So to get to the Arabian Sea and these types of issues, and I'm wondering, a pipeline that goes from Iran through Pakistan to India for energy, for natural gas, would this be a flashpoint with the additional U.S. troops in Afghanistan and possibly activity in Pakistan?
Right. Well, in fact, it's been a flashpoint for several years. In fact, as I mentioned in the book, talking about Iraq, why we went into Iraq to basically preempt Chinese occupation of oil fields there. As far as Afghanistan is, you know, that was the first place we went after 9/11. We garrisoned Afghanistan. Now, the significance of that is that that's really the high ground between China and Central Asia. And I think that we've had a policy to try and discourage Chinese encroachment into Central Asia, particularly Kazakhstan, Turkmenistan, lots of oil and gas there. And you're right. I mean, there's intense pipeline politics going on all over that subcontinent region there. You know, the Chinese want to build a pipeline through Burma to avoid having to go through the Malacca Straits. Pakistan looks like it's kind of in play some way. I think that the reason we're moving troops into Afghanistan, I don't think it's just because of the Taliban. I think there are probably other larger strategic issues there.
Absolutely. The oil card, Jim Norman. Jim, thanks for being on the program.
It's been great fun. Great questions from your callers also. Thanks for your time, George.
They're the greatest. We'll be back in a moment now with an hour of Jim